Namaskar. Hello, friends. I, as a sincere spiritual seeker, am glad to be regarded as mad. Spirit is what is before and after the physical. For all I know, spirit is like nothing that I have known thus far. Therefore, my personal belief is that a sincere spiritual seeker needs to put aside his rationality when contemplating on the spiritual matters. Now, that raises the hackles of most rational people. They ask, do you mean one has to be mad if one needs to pursue spiritual goal? My response to that is as follows. It depends on how you define mad. If you are holding on to something that is unacceptable to the majority of people around you, and if that qualifies you to be regarded as mad, then I would say yes, one would have to be mad to pursue spirituality earnestly. For example, when nobody is able to see the moon in the sky, and one person says he is able to see it, he is likely to be called mad. Likewise, when most rational people around me do not believe in God, and I do, then let me, as a sincere spiritual seeker, be regarded as mad in that respect. A non-believer may say to a spiritual seeker, you must be mad to pursue something that you don't even know anything concrete about. Are you not mad to be chasing a mirage? Well, as a sincere spiritual seeker, yes, one would have to be mad in that respect to pursue the spiritual goal that he hasn't seen or he has no proof of. 10 self-commandments for a serious spiritual seeker. Leave the past behind. I am not thinking about anything that happened in the past, and I am not questioning it. Second, present moment is in accordance with the divine plan. The state of the world, including me as it stands at the moment and every moment, is fine, and it fits the divine plan. Thirdly, let the future be in accordance with the divine plan. I have no desires in that regard. I do not want any particular scenario to come about at a future point in time. Fourthly, I do not want any particular scenario not to come about at a future point in time. In other words, I have no desires or fears. Fifthly, I do not covet any possessions. I do not want to possess any particular thing that I do not have at the moment. Sixthly, suffering is not to be abhorred. I do not want to be rid of any particular thing that I am suffering from at present. Seventh, my near and dear ones are not mine. They have divine in them as much as I have. So the divine in them and me is experiencing the variety in life as he wants. Seventh, I do not want my near and dear ones to be happy. Eighth, I do not want my near and dear ones not to be unhappy. Ninth, I am only a puppet in the hands of the divine, and he is moving me for his purpose. I do not want to work towards a particular objective driven by my conditioned thinking. Finally, the 10th one, I am ready to work towards anything that is not driven by my conditioned desire, but rather in God consciousness. See the big picture. All kinds of people can be spiritual by seeing the big picture. First and foremost, I do not believe that one must be a theist or God believing to be spiritual, but rather one must be non physical in his mind to be spiritual. Theists, atheists, as well as agnostics can be spiritual if they choose to. What is spiritual practice? Is it very difficult as most people tend to believe? Spirituality has everything to do with our mental attitude and almost nothing to do with our life in the physical world. It therefore follows that spiritual pursuit should involve our mind rather than our physical body. Thus, one may continue living a normal life and doing all that seems necessary in every given situation, and yet he can be spiritual. Now, how can that be? One way of pursuing a spiritual way of life is by being aware that there is an invisible big picture of which my existence is only a small part. Sorry. Then spiritual pursuit would essentially be a sincere and durable recognition that there is an invisible spirit behind all this physical creation and my life in it. If we are able to establish our mind firmly in this kind of frame, nothing in the physical world will disturb us or agitate or excite us. We will believe that whatever is happening must be a part of a big and long-term plan that we do not know of. In other words, we will believe that whoever or whatever is behind this creation knows what needs to happen and it is in charge of the world. This can be said to be the theist's way of being spiritual. But some people may find it difficult to believe that there is God or some intelligent phenomenon behind all that is happening in this world. Yet they can also be spiritual if they can believe that this world is inconsequential. After all, we do not take anything from this inconsequential world with us when we die. Then why should we bother about what has happened in the past or is happening at this present moment or whatever may happen in the future? This is how even atheists can become spiritual in the sense that they will be non-physical by virtue of their indifference to the physical world. There may be another category of people who may be in between or who are called as agnostics. People who do not reject the existence of God or big picture, but they do not accept it either. They simply say that God may be there, but that they do not know. They may not believe that there is a big picture, nor do they think the world to be inconsequential. So they think that the world and our lives in it are created to give each one of us a big enough canvas to paint our own picture as we want it and to the extent of our capability. As such, these people take active interest in their lives in this world. Even then, such people can simply tell themselves to take things as they come while putting in their best efforts to paint as big and as beautiful a life picture as they can. But they should be aware that the painting does not matter to anyone other than themselves as an individual, and that too only so long as one is alive. This awareness can also be regarded as spiritual pursuit because people who are in such awareness will not be disturbed, agitated, excited about anything that happens or does not happen. Bear in mind that there is a big picture. When we are walking, there is a considerable pressure on the feet and a consequent discomfort to them. But that is an essential part of the big picture for the body that has a mission of moving from one place to another. Consider a voltmeter used to measure voltage. The voltmeter will have its own experience when a voltage is input to it. That is, its indicator will move as a result. But for the person using the voltmeter, the reading serves a purpose that is beyond the grasp of the voltmeter if the voltmeter had some consciousness. So the person taking the reading has a bigger picture which is not known to the voltmeter, figuratively speaking. The above two examples indicate the critical importance of recognizing the existence of a big picture that we may not know or understand. The events happening in our life and the experiences we seem to be having from time to time are only a small part of the big picture. In fact, our experiences may not even be perceived in the same manner at all at the Creator's level. So, a spiritual approach to living essentially consists of surrendering to the Almighty's will, accepting life as it pans out every moment, doing things with a firm belief that it is the divine will and that I have nothing to gain or lose by doing it. I am only an observer. Or alternatively, we can think that I am only an instrument that the Almighty is using to take a reading of His creation. But what use is made of that reading is up to the Almighty, and I cannot know it. Discard bodily identity. You must have seen a roving seller of balloons. He inflates a few balloons, ties a thread to each of them, and wraps those threads around his fingers. When someone comes to buy a balloon, he removes one from one of his fingers and gives it away. Then he inflates another balloon and ties it to his finger again. Our mind is like the balloon seller. Myriad different objects in the world that entice us are like balloons, and our desires are like the threads that keep our mind attached to the objects. The moment one desired object is acquired, it gets detached from our mind, but our mind immediately inflates another one and promptly gets attached to it. Now, when does the balloon seller stop this repeated activity of detaching and reattaching balloons to his fingers? Possibly at the end of his workday, when he thinks he must get home. Then he disposes of his last balloon and does not inflate any more balloons. So now he becomes detached from the balloons, but only temporarily. Again, the next morning he is out to repeat the cycle of inflating, attaching and detaching balloons. Likewise, we humans also take a temporary respite when our life ends, but only to restart the repetitive cycle of desires all over again in the next life. Is there the end to this cycle? The balloon seller, upon becoming old, may finally decide that he can no longer continue going out and selling balloons. So he will then hang his boots permanently and be free from the repetitive inflate, attach, detach cycle. Similarly, we humans have to develop a lasting vairagya bhav, that is detached attitude, that makes us lose all interest in the worldly pursuits driven by otherwise unending desires. That is when we will be released from the repetitive cycle of birth and death. said that a sincere spiritual seeker should develop detachment. So then one would tell oneself that he should reduce his attachment. Say for example, attachment to smoking. He may manage it with considerable effort after some time. But that is only one attachment gone, and we tend to have many of them. We can imagine the plight of one trying to detach oneself from good food, sports, entertainment, hobbies, wife, children, grandchildren, friends, etc. etc. It is like the balloon seller having too many balloons tied around his fingers and their threads getting entangled with each other. So how does one manage to get detached from the whole samsara, that is worldly life, without having to go on trying to painstakingly detach from many objects one by one? As we can see, there are myriad different objects at the far end of our attachments. Trying to get rid of those myriad objects one by one is indeed extremely difficult. However, at the near end, there is just a single entity involved in all these attachments. That single entity is one's limited bodily identity or ego. That is the driver behind the various attachments forming. So if this single entity is removed, all the myriad objects at the far end will be instantly detached. Thus, it should be relatively easier to detach oneself from the samsara if one can manage to get rid of one's ego. It is by our Sadguru's grace that we can manage to rid ourselves of our ego and develop a durable vairagya bhav. That alone can lead us to moksha, liberation. I will stop here today and see you the next time. Until then, take care. Bye.